In this life coaching demonstration with my friendly AI that I've briefed to be a client, I'm going to be showing you how to coach with depth, how to go beyond to-do list coaching, which is not only rather unsatisfying for us as coaches, but is also becoming redundant and the kind of coaching that clients aren't really interested in because, I mean, these days, even our AI chatbots can do basic goal setting and action plans. So people are still coming to coaches and seeking out coaches for the human touch, for depth, for meaningful inner transformation. Now, there are a couple of big mistakes that new coaches and even more advanced coaches make that keeps the session in surface to-do list levels. So in this demonstration, I'm going to show you these common mistakes. I'm going to show you how to easily replace them with very natural questions, the way you position yourself as a coach in that moment, the way you take a client into depth without breaking rapport, being willing to challenge and stretch them, but in a coaching way. And I'm going to be linking this to the ICF core competency, specifically number 7, which is called Evokes awareness. Now, whether you are on the ICF credentialing path, seeking ACC, PCC, or MCC, or just a coach that wants to really coach deep, transformational, and meaningful coaching, and you don't want to stay in the to-do list, planning to plan level of coaching, then this tutorial and this life coaching demonstration is for you.
Yeah, I think that still sounds right. I do want to start putting myself out there more, like sharing ideas online and building some kind of personal brand. I just haven't really started yet. I guess I'm hoping to figure out some kind of plan for how to actually do it. I just feel a bit unsure where to begin.
So you want a plan to put yourself out there and to build a personal brand. So is that what you would like from our coaching session today, Sam?
Yeah, I think so. Having some kind of plan would probably help. I just, yeah, I'm not totally sure what that would look like yet, but something practical would be good.
So something practical. And how would you know that you have a plan? What do you need to see or to have in your hands?
Maybe just a few clear steps, I guess, like what I should actually do first, and maybe the next couple of things after that. Something I could just start with.
So something that you can start with and a few practical steps. So in terms of this plan, if 10 out of 10 it means that you already have the plan and 0 out of 10 means you don't have the plan at all, whereabouts are you with creating this plan?
Maybe a 3, I think. Like, I've thought about it a bit, but I haven't really put anything concrete together yet. So, yeah, probably around a 3.
A 3. And where would you like to be at the end of our time together?
Maybe like a 7, I think. Not completely figured out, but at least something I could actually start doing.
A 7, something you can start doing. So the long-term goal is to have a personal brand, and today you want a plan with practical next steps. You're at a 3, you want to get to a 7. So tell me, what comes to mind as a first possible step?
Maybe starting to post something online, like maybe on LinkedIn, just sharing a thought or something from my work. I guess that could be a first step. I'm just not totally sure what I'd say yet.
So your first step is to post something online and on LinkedIn. And when do you want to do that?
Maybe sometime next week. I think that would give me a bit of time to figure out what to post. I'm just not exactly sure which day yet.
So which day seems like a good choice? If you just look at next week and you think about what would be an ideal day, what day would you like to choose?
Maybe Tuesday. That feels like it could work. I'd probably have some time in the morning to put something together, I think.
So that means Tuesday. And how are you going to keep yourself accountable to taking this first step?
I'm sorry, did you mean Sam? I guess maybe I could just put it in my calendar for Tuesday morning and try to write the post then, I think.
So you would try to write the post on Tuesday and then you would post it later on Tuesday. And that's how you're going to keep yourself on track.
Yeah, I guess that could work. If I write it in the morning, then maybe I could just post it later that day.
Okay, did you spot the problems with that way of coaching? Now, at first glance, especially if you're at a beginner stage in your coaching skills development, you're going to go, but Cole, that sounded perfectly right. And on paper, it probably looks okay because the client wants to build a personal brand. So we've established the goal, tick. They want from the session a plan. Specifically, they want first steps, tick. Those are two great ways to start a coaching session, to excavate the long-term dream, to find out what a client wants from the session. At an advanced level, or even at a more, let's say, master coaching level, I would suggest not even putting the word goal on the table, but it's not wrong to do that. But still, we've established that summit on the mountain that the client wants to reach, and we've found out what they want from the coaching session. I even threw in a measure, what's called a success or progress measure, asking the client how far they were with developing the plan. And then we went ahead and started coming up with solutions, which is really to answer the thing that the client was asking. They want a plan, they wanted a first step, they came up with an idea, I reflected it back, I backtracked their words. These are all check, technically correct coaching. But can you tell that this style of coaching is going to keep us on the surface? She's going to leave with an action plan. She's going to leave with, I'm going to do this on this day, I'm going to do this on that day. But can you pick up intuitively and from the client's voice, my friendly AI that I've briefed thoroughly in how to act like the client we need for this demo, can you tell that there is hesitancy? There's a lot of using the word maybe, and there's a pause. There's not, I'm going to do this, and this is the day I'm going to do it. There's not a solid sense of commitment. There are non-verbal cues showing up here. There is something going on, and to achieve professional and master level coaching, we need to honor that. Now, we're not going to step into therapy shoes because we're not therapists as coaches. So we're not going to deep dive into the past or the pain or the story. Tell me about where this hesitancy is coming from. Neither are we going to make an assumption and say, I see you're hesitant, and make it a fact and drop it into the space. But I will show you what to do instead. As long as you've picked up that the mistake here is not picking up that there is more and staying with only practical questions, the how to, the when questions. The ICF, the International Coaching Federation, calls this what? Coaching the what? They used to call it coaching solutions above awareness back then, many years ago. So coaching solutions above awareness means that we are keeping the session in a practical lane when it is clear that something deeper is going on and showing up. To meet that, we need to feel confident and have some, let's say, ways and methods and know the boundaries of coaching to take the session into depth, which I will show you later. This is a quick pause to say thank you to the many folks who are watching our life coaching demonstrations with these ICF tips. Please, if this work lands for you, if it serves you, if it's helpful, let's continue to let the YouTube bots and algorithms know that one, you want more of this content, and two, just helping our small channel growing so beautifully, making all this hard work even more worthwhile. So drop us a comment that you would like more of these coaching demonstrations. If you have any specific questions or challenges that you are facing as a coach and you would like to see a demonstration, let us know. And of course, like and subscribe. But next is a second mistake that is very common. So first mistake is keeping the session on the surface by only asking practical surface questions when there is something else going on and we can hear it. The second mistake, which I'm going to show you now, is when the coach decides how to continue with the bulk of the session. So in the beginning of a session, we are usually establishing that long-term dream or goal or change or difference that the client wants. Then we are establishing what they want from the coaching session itself, which at InnerLifeSkills, we call that a contract. We never use that word with a client though, but it's an outcome. And we get a whole lot of details around that. It's even really a great idea to find out why it's significant for a client, etc. And then the bulk of the time of a session needs to be focused on actually delivering, achieving the thing that the client wants. But if the client says they want an action plan, we as coaches need to realize an action plan is often not an action plan. And once the client starts trusting us, and once we start trusting our own intuition and our own deeper listening, we will pick up on the depth that starts to want to reveal itself in the session. And we need to be able to go there. One of the worst things we can do is then we decide what happens next. Let me show you what that looks like. Sam, you said you want to leave with an action plan so that you can start putting yourself out there on social media to build your personal brand. So what I think the best approach is for us to come up with perhaps 5 to 10 action steps that you can take in, let's say, the next month. You said you also wanted a starting point. So I think if we get some clarity on a starting point, and then I think it's also pretty important for us to look at how you're going to keep yourself on track and accountable to that journey. How does that sound, Sam?
Yeah, I guess that sounds okay. 5 to 10 steps feels like quite a lot, maybe. But I suppose we could try figure out a few things for the month. I'm just not totally sure yet what those steps would be.
Not a problem. I'm sure that by the time we get into it, they will reveal themselves. And if it's fewer than 10, that's fine. Anywhere between 5 and 10, I think is going to be a good idea. So let's do that. So this really is an example of failing to partner with our clients, where we decide how we're going to achieve. So when the coach decides how the session is going to unfold. So I said to my clients, what I think we should do is, and I proceeded to tell her what I think we needed to do in the session. Now, not only is that going to disempower your client, but if you are interested in International Coaching Federation competencies, this is a serious breach in competencies. And there are several ICF competencies that we are starting to actually build what's called contra evidence. So that if you're going for a performance evaluation where you're submitting a recording of yourself coaching to be assessed, or if you're doing the ICF PCC or ACC exam where they give you multiple choice answers and they're testing to see if you understand this, we are breaching several competencies But most specifically, Evokes awareness is the one that I am focusing on today. And we are failing to consider the client experience when deciding on what might be useful. And you'll see in ICF language that the word partnering happens again and again and again. The very definition of coaching is a partnership. Now, in that example, was I partnering with the client? Was I finding out what they felt was a great approach to getting their action plan? No. Did I find out what an action plan looked like for them? No. So there's a failure to partner. The third common mistake that I want to put on the table is how we give feedback as a coach. Now, I'll tell you that many years ago, in the early stages of the coaching profession being benchmarked and the existence of the International Coaching Federation starting to create gold standards for the profession of coaching, I don't believe that it was very well understood or perhaps accepted that a coach could give feedback. And in some ways, what I saw in the earliest years was that coaching became a little bit robotic. And I've seen a lot of coaches struggle with, now, do I just sit back and be so passive that if I notice something, I can't put it on the table? Because they're so afraid sometimes to enter into the territory of mentoring or therapy or other modalities that we tend to swing against that like a pendulum and go into too much of a passive role as a coach. So can a coach challenge a client? Can a coach give feedback even according to ICF standards? And the answer is yes, if we know how. But I'm going to show you how not to do it first. So let's jump in. Sam, I'm just going to put it out there. I think you are not ready. I don't think you're ready for a personal brand. I think that there's some kind of deep issue around confidence, and yeah, I just don't think you're ready.
Oh, okay. I mean, I thought the idea was to figure out how to start. If you think I'm not ready, then I'm not really sure what we're doing in the session, I guess.
Yeah, look, sometimes it's important to take on a little bit of a direct approach. And in my expert opinion, I really feel that, there's just far too much hesitancy here. And I wonder if coaching is even for you.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's a bit surprising to hear. I thought I was here to work on this. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what you'd like me to do then.
Okay, so I was exaggerating for effect. It's quite unlikely that many of us would be that direct. The thing about giving feedback is that stating it as a fact, exerting an opinion as if it is the truth, not putting it into the space in a way that allows the client to respond. Anything that positions us as a plus, and it could even be subtle, or, I think that you need help here, or you're not ready. That's my opinion, but I don't think you're ready. Even when it's like I think, or it's an opinion, but when we insert something without creating space for dialogue and without being willing to be wrong and putting it in that type of context, some clients are going to believe us and we're going to change lives in a bad way. We're going to send someone on a whole other direction, or we're going to block a future timeline that they could have pursued. We've also robbed someone of their autonomy, their dignity, their power when we have made a decision for them. And as coaches, that's a big ICF no. Not that they would say that, right? And there's a serious breach in several competencies and probably even code of ethics at this point. So the way we give feedback is important. The way we stretch our clients is important. So you've got a couple of mistakes, or at least things that you can start working on. Number one, I showed you that if we stay with only practical what style questions, action plan questions, goal questions, we will keep the session surface. If we dismiss, and not hear subtle cues of hesitancy because we don't know how to deal with that, that's also a problem. If we decide how to resolve, how to deliver the session for the client, how to get them to where they want in the coaching session, that's also a problem. And then the way we give feedback is going to be super important. So let's roll up our sleeves now and look at how to do this with an honoring of the client, an honoring of the ICF competencies, a true state of empowerment where we can really achieve meaningful change for the client in partnership. You said at the beginning of our coaching session today that your long-term dream is to establish a personal brand, and that today it would be meaningful for you to walk away with an action plan. Specifically, you want to know how to start. But Sam, and please tell me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing a fair bit of hesitancy in your voice. How does that land for you if I put that into the conversation?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I do notice that I'm a bit hesitant when I talk about it. I mean, I still want to do it. It just feels a little uncomfortable, I guess.
And do you think that that sense of feeling uncomfortable is holding you back from taking the steps that you really want to take?
Yeah, I think it probably is a bit. Like, I do have ideas about posting on LinkedIn and sharing things from my work. But when it comes to actually doing it, I kind of pause. So, yeah, I guess it does slow me down.
So it's that pause that's slowing you down. May I ask that pause, if you were to just check in with how that shows up in your body, like as a felt feeling, what happens to your body posture, your breath, your breathing, what comes to mind?
I think I kind of tense up a little. My shoulders probably go a bit tight, and I notice I sort of hold my breath for a moment. It's like I start thinking about posting, and then my body just sort of pauses.
So there's actually a body pause with some tension happening.
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's like a little tightening, and then I kind of hesitate before doing anything.
If you consider other times in your life where you've really wanted to do something, but a hesitancy or a similar pause has showed up, have you found a way to overcome that in the
Yeah, I think that's happened before. Like when I've had to speak up in meetings at work or share an idea with the team. I usually want to, but there's that same kind of pause first.
and look back to find where you have either overcome the pause or the pause has just not been there and you've just been able to share freely?
Yeah, there have been a few times like that. Usually when I've prepared a bit beforehand, like if I've written down what I want to say or thought it through first, then the pause is still kind of there, but it's smaller. And I can usually just go ahead and say it.
So there's an element of thinking it through, but all right, I'm interested, I'm curious, and tell me if you feel like we're going in the wrong direction here. But if you weren't to pause, what would you want instead?
I think I'd want to feel a bit more at ease when I'm about to share something, like not overthinking it so much, just being able to post the idea or thought and let it be out there. So, yeah, maybe just a bit more ease around it, I guess.
So from pause to ease, does that sound accurate?
Yeah, that actually sounds pretty accurate. From that kind of pause to something that feels a bit more easy or natural. I think that's what I'd want.
So which of those words is really showing up as the right words for you?
I think ease is the one that stands out more. The pause is just what happens, but ease is probably more what I'd actually want instead.
And how do you know when you've accessed that ease?
I think I'd notice that I'm not overthinking it as much. Like, I'd probably just write something maybe on LinkedIn and post it without sitting with it for ages. And my body would probably feel a bit more relaxed, like my shoulders wouldn't be so tight.
Not overthinking and more relaxed. So, look, something's coming up for me here, Sam, and I want to just check with you. I know that you said in the beginning that,
Yeah, that's okay. What's coming up?
yeah, at the beginning you said you wanted an action plan, and now we're heading into this territory of exploring this transition from pause to ease. What would be more meaningful for us to look at right now?
I think this part might actually be helpful because the plan is good. But if that pause keeps showing up, I'm not sure I'd follow the plan anyway. So maybe understanding how to get a bit more of that ease first could help.
So, if today we looked first at how to get more of that ease, is that what you would like for us to do first?
Yeah, I think that would be good. If I could feel a bit more at ease with it, then the steps might feel easier to actually follow through on.
So, feeling more at ease will make the steps easier. How does that sound when I repeat those words back to you?
Yeah, that actually sounds pretty right. When you say it like that, it makes it feel a bit more manageable somehow. Like the steps wouldn't feel so big.
The steps wouldn't feel as big. I'm going to post another demonstration over here because if you're interested in this one, I'm assuming that another demo would be helpful. And I want to wish you everything of the best in your journey to become a master coach.